Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Spunkify here for MMOBomb.com, and I want to welcome you back to another episode here of our MOBA Spotlight series. This week, though, we're in the world of Smite, checking out one of the newest gods to be added to Smite called Bakasura. Now, Bakasura is an assassin/melee character based on the Hindu pantheon, and he's a pretty cool little guy. He hides his head, but when he brings out his head, oh boy, does the damage come. So why don't we go ahead and start talking about his abilities, what makes him a little unique in that respect, and then we'll get into how he actually plays. So to begin with, we have his passive called Insatiable Hunger. And now when Bakasura's attack speed can be increased by 4% every time he kills an enemy. That means an enemy minion or an enemy hero/god. The buff will last for 10 seconds and he can stack it up to 5 times, giving him a nice passive attack speed increase. His first ability is called Takedown, which is on his Q. Now what Bakasura will do is he'll leap to his target ground location, dealing AoE damage in that location, as well as reducing the damage the enemies do by 30% for 3 seconds. This is a great initiation tool, allowing you to jump right in the middle of fights and not worry about taking too much damage, but it also being used to jump over walls if you need to escape, or just simply create a distance between you and the enemy. It's a good ability, and it's his only gap distance ability, besides a slow that he gets on his ultimate. Now his second ability is Eat Minion. You may have seen him do it just now on the screen. What Eat Minion allows him to do is he of course eats a minion, consumes it, places it inside his belly, and actually wields a charge. Now these charges can stack up to 6 times, and they come into use with his ultimate. But besides that, it also heals Bakasura for a percentage of his health, and it gives him a movement speed buff up to 35% for 6 seconds. It's a nice ability to have, and it's good for actually jungling, which makes Bakasura one of the better junglers in Smite currently. Now his third ability is called Butcher Blades. And what it allows you to do is you gain a physical attack bonus of 30 at max rank passively. Now when you activate the ability, you gain an additional 75 true damage on each strike for 6 seconds. So you have a nice passive bonus attack, and then you have a nice activatable bonus attack. If you guys play League of Legends, it's kind of like Master Yi's E ability, where he has like the passive bonus damage, and then he has of course the activatable bonus damage. Now, his ultimate is called Regurgitate, and it does exactly what it sounds like. You regurgitate everything in your bowels, which means all those minions that you've been consuming, up to those 6 minions, you regurgitate all of them, all over the place, all over everybody. And you actually will slow people in AoE in that circle. The minions, once regurgitated, will attack your enemies, and they will also apply the slow as well. Now, one nice thing about it is the minions can be actually used as disruption in between you and the enemy. You don't have to worry about, the enemy kind of just directly heading to you. They kind of have to wade through all these minions. Additionally, your attacks become cone attacks for 6 seconds, meaning you can distance yourself from the enemy, avoid damage, while still doing your normal auto attack damage and having those minions just wail and wail and wail on people. It's a lot of fun to do. Now, overall, how exactly do you play Bakasura? How does he play? What do you do with him, etc.? Well, he is, of course, an attack damage style champion. You do build him physical damage, but he can either be in the lane, or he can be jungle, or he can be jungle lane. The nice thing about Smite is it doesn't require junglers to remain in the jungle for a long time. They can remain in the jungle for just small, short periods of time to get the crucial buffs and then go back out in the field. Unlike League of Legends, all of the buff or all of the camps in the jungle for Smite give you a buff. There isn't any that don't give you a buff. The only one that doesn't give you a buff is, of course, kind of like the dragon equivalent, which is like a queen style wraith that she sits there and she gives you gold when you kill her. Other than that, they give you cooldown reduction, they give you attack damage, they give you mana, and of course they give you HP. So when you go in to get a buff, you just get a buff temporarily, and then you come back out to the lane, do your thing in your lane, and then you go back to get another buff. Alternatively, if you play him assassin style, you just constantly be roaming, and you leave one lane open all the time. I tended to favor going in on the left side, getting a couple of the health regeneration, mana regeneration, and attack damage buffs, and then staying to help out the left side. Because a jungler isn't always guaranteed on both teams, meaning that sometimes your one solo lane that actually is created for you jungling ends up going 1v2. So you do need to actually help them out and get some ganks done on them, which you should be able to do given the fact that Bakasura, once he gets his ultimate, has a gap closer and a slow, which is quite nice. Now, I enjoy Bakasura for numerous reasons, but mostly because of the fact that I like his minion mechanic. You can eat those minions, you can accrue those charges up to 6, and then you just spew them all over the place. You don't have to worry about managing or anything. They kind of have their own AI. They kind of initially just run after the nearest god and start wailing on them in place. I really like the mechanic, and I know some of you will be like, well, that mechanic was from, you know, League of Legends or Dota or Han or whatever. But the truth is, there's a consume minion mechanic in every, you know, MOBA game. It's just there, and I like that they tie it into his ultimate, adding in a, you know, additional thing where it's not just like a static heal. It also ties into his ultimate where he just regurgitates all over the place. Now, it does depend also on what minions you consume as well. So if you consume an archer or if you consume an ogre, they will regurgitate as an archer and an ogre. So you can actually create kind of like this team of regurgitated minions that are preferable for ones that, you know, attack at range and you can't get close enough to them. You can regurgitate a bunch of archers, and the archers will just start firing from afar, etc. Really nice to use. Unfortunately, they do die out fairly quickly, but I like to use them as well. And yes, to answer your question, if you're fighting an enemy Bakasura, you can consume a regurgitated minion that the enemy Bakasura regurgitates. So you can kind of go back and forth like ping pong. You'll see that actually do that later in the video. It's quite funny. Now, as Bakasura, I do feel like you can really quickly spiral out of control as far as damage. I'm not saying that he's overpowered, but even if you have a really, you know, so-so early game, you can quickly come back into late game and really dominate. A lot of that I think has to do with the fact that he's a quick jungler and he can quickly kind of consume and kill minions extremely fast. Both through his E, which gives him the extra damage, and then his W, which outright kills minions. The only minion that doesn't outright kill is, of course, the super minions, you know, the fire giant, which is like this game's version of Baron Nashor. And of course, you know, any other large buff-wielding minion. The buff-wielding minions can be killed. They do though, however, have to go down to 30% HP before they can be consumed. But just given the fact that that ability is on a low cooldown, gives you HP, it means that his upkeep is fairly low, and you can just kind of continuously eat minions, regenerate HP, and get the actual gold. So I found myself really leveling up and being ahead in levels really quickly just for the fact that I can kill those camps that are worth a lot of gold and a lot of experience really fast, especially because you can buy the ability in Smite that gives you an AoE Smite ability, which then increases your passive, because if you smite something with the ability and it dies, then of course procs your passive, and given the fact that you can then combine it with your W, dealing even more ridiculous damage to the minions and actually just clearing it out in a few seconds flat. I had no problem clearing camps at all. It was easy peasy mode, not a problem. In team fights, your job or your role is to, of course, focus the squishy, most damage-dealing characters that you can possibly can. A lot of times, these characters will have some sort of like gap closer or gap extender, so you do want to save your ultimate when possible, so you can actually regurgitate on them and kind of slow them down so they don't get away. I typically didn't use my Q to initiate on fights. I'd use regurgitate on the enemies, and then once they use their gap distance, you know, initiator, etc., then I would jump on top of them at that point, in order to actually take advantage of, you know, the damage reduction and the gap closing, you know, because at that point they can't get away. They don't have any other ability to get away. They're forced to fight me. Additionally, I like to buy this game's version of a Frozen Mallet, which actually allows you to slow with your auto attacks, keeping enemies always in range of you. Because Bakasura is such a squirrely character, he likes to dip in and out of fights as quickly as possible, and he's really squishy and focused. You do need to make sure that you take most advantage of your attack speed and your movement speed. So buying attack speed and attack damage and movement speed items allow you to kind of dart in and dart out. Keep in mind you can consume a creep while you're fighting enemies, meaning that you can consume a creep, get the movement speed bonus as well as the health regeneration, continue fighting, or skirt away. You're always sustaining yourself, you know, and then if you couple that with a little bit of lifesteal from an item, then you have your auto attacks giving you lifesteal as well. But yeah, I do feel that Bakasura can really snowball extremely quickly if someone competent is actually playing him. I would say that if they nerfed his E, if they brought down the damage on his E, it would be a little bit more balanced. I do feel that it gives you a little bit too much oomph, especially early game. But late game, I feel like if it's an even-tied game, then, you know, it's a 50-50 chance Bakasura can actually take advantage of that. I did find my Q a little bit hard to actually use. You have to kind of judge if your character's running away and place the actual jump in front of them, because there is a delay for the animation to jump actually to that point. So you want to make sure that you're judging exactly where the enemy is and place it a little bit ahead, just so that you can make sure that you land on top of them and take full advantage of the damage and the damage reduction that it provides as well. Overall though guys, I really enjoyed Bakasura, and if you guys are in Smite right now, if you guys are in the closed beta, I definitely recommend checking him out if you're a fan of assassin type characters. He's really fun, and if you also like jungling, he's a perfect candidate for jungling as well. But that's been my overall impressions there of Bakasura. If you guys want to learn more about Smite, you guys can check down below at MMOBomb for all the latest news and information regarding Smite, maybe even a beta key giveaway occasionally. But otherwise guys, this has been Spunkify. I'll see you guys next time. Spunkify out!